Okay, in this video I'm going to continue reviewing the practice documents for the passive that I put on the class webpage. So the third practice document, which I covered, well, I covered part of it in the earlier video. I'm going to resume now with number 6 and go through the rest of those answers. So number 6 says, Sally Jones had located the missing toddler before the police arrived. Sally Jones is the subject, had located is the verb, and the missing toddler is the object of the verb. So since we have a transitive verb, located, and we have an object, the missing toddler, we can make this a passive voice sentence. And remember again that we had past perfect here as our verb tense, so we'll have to use the past perfect in our passive voice sentence. So we're going to move the missing toddler to the front of the sentence, the missing toddler, and put the passive in the past perfect. The missing toddler had been located by Sally Jones before the police arrived. The missing toddler had been located by Sally Jones before the police arrived. Now, number 7. I can get to number 7 on my paper here. Number 7 says, look, the rabbit is being chased by the dog. So the rabbit is being chased. We see that we have a form of the be verb, and we have the past participle of chase, which is chased. So this is a passive voice sentence, and we can make it active by making the agent, the dog, the subject of the active voice sentence. Now, you need to ask yourself again, what is the verb tense in this sentence? And is being, because we see the ing, we know it's a progressive form, and is the present tense, so is being is the present progressive. The dog is chasing the rabbit. The dog is chasing the rabbit. Number 8 says, Sarah looked sad and lonely as she sat on the empty park bench. Remember, your verb has to be transitive in an active voice sentence for it to be made into a passive voice sentence. Here, we cannot change the sentence because Sarah looked sad and lonely. Looked is not a transitive verb. It's a non-action verb. Sarah was not doing anything. She was just appearing sad and lonely. We're talking about her appearance, not something she's doing. So again, that cannot be changed. In number 9, the suspects were being interrogated by the police in front of the rundown apartment complex. Were being interrogated is the verb form. And since we have a form of the verb be plus the past participle, this is a passive voice sentence, and we can change it to active. So we'll take police, the agent, and make it the subject of the active voice sentence. And then we need to identify the verb tense. Here we have were being, which is a past progressive, because were is past and being is the progressive. So we need to make interrogate a past progressive verb in the active voice. The police were interrogating the suspects in front of the rundown apartment complex. The police were interrogating the suspects in front of the rundown apartment complex. Number 10 says, a grizzled man was handing out free newspapers to early morning commuters. Was handing out is the past progressive verb. There's no form of the verb be here, so it cannot be a passive. It must be an active. So how are we going to change this into a passive? Well, we take the object, free newspapers, and make that the subject of the passive sentence, passive voice sentence. Free newspapers were being handed out to early morning commuters by a grizzled man. Free newspapers were being handed out to early morning commuters by a grizzled man. That was a sentence in the past progressive and passive when we changed it. Number 11, the missing case files have never been located by the police. Have never been located is a passive voice because we have been, the be verb, plus located, the past participle. So we'll take the agent, the police, and make it the subject of the active voice sentence. And it's a present perfect passive, so we'll need a present perfect active. The police have never located the missing case files. The police have never located the missing case files. And finally, number 12, the 3 award winners will give speeches during the ceremony. Will give is an active voice verb, and speeches is the object. So speeches will be given by the 3 award winners during the ceremony. We have to keep the future in the passive voice, so speeches will be given by the 3 award winners during the ceremony. All right, so that takes care of exercise number 3. And I think I'll go back and at least do a little bit of exercises 1 and 2, so in case you want to check how you're doing on those. We may or may not have time to cover them in class, probably not, so we'll just go over a few of those. Again, the main elements to doing these sentences correctly is to, I think probably one of the major issues for you is getting the verb tense correct. And in some of them it's identifying what the object is, but overall it's probably the verb tense. So I'm going back to exercise 1, which is really the same old. We're still just changing sentences from active to passive or passive to active depending on the situation. But the first one in exercise 1 is local authorities have scheduled a media briefing for 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So what was scheduled? What is the direct object of schedule? It's a media briefing. So a media briefing, and the verb tense in the active voice sentence is present perfect, have scheduled, have plus the past participle. So we need to keep that verb tense for the passive voice sentence. A media briefing has been scheduled by local authorities for 9 a.m. Tuesday. A media briefing has been scheduled by local authorities for 9 a.m. Tuesday. One of the mistakes that I notice students making is when they have an active voice sentence with a third person plural verb, in this case local authorities, which of course goes with have. When they change it to a passive voice sentence, a media briefing, which is now singular, third person singular, they forget to change the verb have to has, right? Local authorities, in other words, they have scheduled, but a media briefing being singular is has. So once again, a media briefing has been scheduled. The second one, investigators gave no motive for the attack. This is an active voice sentence. The object is no motive. So that would be our new subject. No motive was given for the attack by investigators. Or, no motive was given by investigators for the attack. The next sentence is, the gunman's name has not been released. This one could be a little tricky because we don't have an agent in this sentence. It is a passive voice sentence because we have a form of be, has been, plus the past participle, released. But there's no agent, there's no by plus somebody. So if you want to make this into an active voice sentence, you have to figure out who the agent would be. And it doesn't matter too much exactly what you choose as long as it makes sense within the context of the sentence. So maybe we would decide to say by the police if we wanted to add an agent. So in the active voice sentence, we could use police as the new subject. The police have not released the gunman's name. As in the previous sentence, the gunman's name in the original sentence, in the passive voice sentence, is a third person singular. That's why we have has. But if we say police, the police is considered a plural, so that would have to be third person plural, which would be have. So again, the police have not released the gunman's name. In the next sentence, Steger defended the university's conduct. This is pretty clear cut. It's an active voice sentence in the simple past. So we just need to make the standard changes. The university's conduct was defended by Steger. The university's conduct was defended by Steger. And that was a very short exercise, so we're done with that, and I can move on to exercise 2. I don't believe I'll have enough time on this video to finish exercise 2, but I'll either include it on a following video or we can go over it in class if you have any questions. So number 1 in the passive practice number 2 is details of the proposed project will be explained by the company vice president. A couple of these sentences are a little longer, but as long as you identify the object of the transitive verb, you should be able to make a passive voice sentence. But in this case, we're starting out with a passive voice sentence, so we need to change it to active. So the company vice president will explain details of the proposed project. The company vice president will explain details of the proposed project. Don't forget to take ed off of explained when you're making it active so that it's just will explain. 2 is Louise was hurried through customs by 2 FBI agents. Was hurried, again, is the passive voice in the simple past. So we'll make an active voice sentence in the simple past. 2 FBI agents hurried Louise through customs. Number 3, a grand jury will indict James Wilson on murder charges tomorrow. Note before we go through the sentence that the pronunciation of indict is indict. The C is silent. And this is an active voice sentence in the future. James Wilson will be indicted on murder charges by a grand jury. Okay, we have to add the be verb and the past participle of indict, which is just indicted. So James Wilson will be indicted by a grand jury on murder charges tomorrow. Number 4, witnesses are called to testify at trials. As in one of the previous sentences, I think it was one of the last sentences on passive practice number 1, there is no agent here. It's a passive voice sentence without an agent. But we should be able to figure out what the agent would be. So witnesses are called to testify at trials. Who calls witnesses? Well, it could be a jury, could be attorney, could be a judge. So if you choose any one of those, it should be fine. So we'll just say attorneys in this case. Attorneys call witnesses to testify at trials. I find that students tend to sometimes make an error when they change these present tense passive sentences into active. Because you notice the ed, witnesses are called, sometimes students will put it in the past tense. They just get confused and forget that they need to look at the form of the be verb for the tense. So attorneys call witnesses to testify at trials. Number 5 says, Bob has loaded 3 of the suitcases into the trunk of the car. It's active because Bob is doing the action. He's the one who is loading the suitcases. Loading means putting the suitcases into the trunk of the car. So in its present perfect, has loaded. 3 of the suitcases have been loaded into the trunk of the car by Bob. 3 of the suitcases have been loaded into the trunk of the car by Bob. And I'll do one more. Louis was beaten up by 4 masked strangers. Was beaten is passive, so we'll take the agent and make an active sentence in the simple past. 4 masked strangers beat up Louis. 4 masked strangers beat up Louis. Beat up is in the past tense, even though it might sound like a present. All right, I'm out of time. More videos coming.